Ladies and gentlemen, the man I'm about to introduce is Oakland architect Ken Lowney. Ken, how are you?
I'm well.
And
Thanks, Eddie.
Ken, this is your platform. For those who haven't seen it, who might be watching this, maybe they're in architecture school.
Yeah.
Describe the site briefly.
The site is a triangle, actually.
Yeah.
You try to go get the
Yeah,
site?
yeah, that's good. I follow you?
Yeah, sure.
Cool, all right.
So leaving my conference room, going
Okay,
to my
cool. All right.
office here.
Yeah. Taking a ride.
Yeah, all right.
Oh, perfect.
So this is the ground floor.
And that's college.
So, yeah, right.
Yeah.
This is College Avenue. This is Claremont. These are the new storefronts we're proposing here. And these red color here are the vestibules that go up to the Safeway, which is on the second floor. Here's that pedestrian walk street with retail on both sides, and that corner.
And right now, this is currently parking, right?
Right
Or is
now,
that a gas station or
right now
something
the
like
gas
that?
station is
Right.
here. The Safeway is here, and this is all on-grade parking. So what we're proposing is this on the ground floor, which is basically trying to mirror what's happening across the street here, and we put the Safeway on the second level. And so actually this is a great time to talk about size. So when we got involved, the Safeway project was all the way out to here, was like a 60,000
Right.
square foot
Look at
store. And so in our competition entry, our first big move to sort of fit this into the surroundings was to chop this off and start to make something that was different, that started to connect with the community. So that's what this is trying to do.
And
this walk street.
That jives with the photograph that we saw over here with the
Right.
overhang, right? Not
Right,
the overhang,
with
but
the bridge.
overpass, the bridge, which
Right,
is
right.
this.
That's the bridge, and
Right.
this is the public roof garden. And then, after that gesture, we started then to sort of work along. But how does this building fit in to the small scale pedestrian experience that's happening across the street? So that's what we were talking about. Why is it so nice to be on that side of College? Well, the stores are smaller. They have awnings. They have nice details. So
It's like on a human scale,
it's
basically.
human scale.
Yeah.
It's nice to be close to that. So we're learning from that, and we're doing the same thing all along the base of this building. And the Safeway, which is 10,000 square feet smaller than it was when we got involved, is on the second level. And so this area is really not an experience of the pedestrian. And the interesting thing is, so not only is this 10,000 square feet smaller than it was, or 9,000 specifically, than when I got involved, but this is the geometry of the store because of how it pinches down here. This is effectively functions, as say a 47,000 square foot store or a 45,000 square foot store, just because of the inefficiency of the geometry. So it's one of the concerns is it's too big. Well, we have shaved a lot off this in size.
Yeah, it
So
sounds like the original one was much larger.
it's
in
much
terms of-
larger, and
right.
so this is
Right.
this is as small as a grocery store can get, and still provide the kinds of goods and services that people coming to Safeway would want to get, and Safeway can still make a profit.
Has anyone addressed the fact that over the period of time the Safeway has been there, the population has increased?
The population of Rockridge.
Yeah.
I don't know about the demographic trends of if it's more. I'm not sure about that.
I remember seeing something from a while back. I have to go back to a blog of it. We had a discussion about. I have to review it, but I'm certain that was one of the
Yeah.
factors someone brought
yeah,
up because you're
so-
talking about increase in housing values
Yeah.
in the area. So.
Well, this will definitely. So,
Yeah.
So I can't speak about the demographic trends. So I'm not sure about that, but I do know when we did the Whole Foods. We're gonna go back into the
Sure,
conference room.
absolutely, yeah.
So we did the Whole Foods over by Lake Merritt, and I had real estate brokers calling me all the time, wondering when that store was gonna be complete because the property values were just going climbing
absolutely.
because of the anticipation of that store. And this is a little different. Actually, it's not. So it's very similar in that regard. Rockridge is a really very valuable place. And so this would just, lock in and increase the value of the neighborhood.
If people want to find out more, they can go to the website, right?
People want to find out more, you can go to safewayoncollege.com and you can see a great movie that we put together that sort of boxed around the whole site, so you can see what we're talking about as far as.
Was it a YouTube movie?
It's a YouTube movie.
Okay, well, we'll link to it.
Yeah, cool. You can really see what it's going to feel like to walk along the sidewalk and sort of the character of the building, and the use of scale and materials, and actually quite traditional ways of making place. So that's what we're doing.
Hey, in closing, this office is in Oakland.
This office is in Oakland, yeah.
So why did you choose to sell in Oakland?
Why did I choose? Because actually being in Oakland has been very good for me. Because I was at Gensler in San Francisco. There are a lot of architects in San Francisco. There's not that much to do. There's a lot to do, but the competition is quite
yeah, it
fierce.
spreads out.
Yeah.
Right.
But San Francisco doesn't need my help. Oakland needs my help, and so really, when we founded this office, it was really about making Oakland better as a city. So we've been really lucky as far as the commissions we've been able to get. So the Whole Foods over by Lake Merritt, working with Ellis Partners and Jack London Square,
Right.
Working on that market. BART, MacArthur BART, and the Transit-Oriented Development Village.
Just announced recently.
Yeah.
Right.
And actually, we're also, I forgot about this. We're the retail architect on the team that's doing the downtown specific plan to rethink how the whole downtown area aggregates, approaches, and develops. It's trying to bring retail back, as basically trying to recover that $1 billion a year we're losing to help get it back here.
You mean another shopping center?
It's not a shopping center. It's definitely not a shopping center. The one in downtown Oakland will be it'll be an urban retail district. It'll be a shopping district. So it's
because I asked because way back in 1994, David Alexander proposed what was it to be a 2 million square foot shopping center in what is now the Uptown condominium area. Right.
Yeah.
So it's so I was wondering if this is a continuation of that thinking, or
I'm not sure the history of that whole. I do know that as usual, I'm entering the conversation after decades and years. So it wouldn't surprise me if that were true. And so yes.
Because I worked for the mayor that next 95. I wrote about it for Montclarian.
Okay, so yes, I'm not aware of it.
So yeah,
but it's the same idea as trying to recognizing the whole we have here. Is that if you do a gap analysis of the area, it's like there is no retail here. Try to buy a couch or some shoes or any kind of comparison of good shopping.
We try. I'll tell you what happened with that project. So viewers, you should know about this. But it's because it's funny because now I find that I'll be 50 next year.
Yeah. And
I find that a lot of the discussion that we had in this, I'm going to call now a sweet spot of time, between 1995 and 2002, is starting to come up again. But the people who were involved then are not being talked to because we've had a population change. It's not deliberate, right? I think it's just people are new and they don't know.
Yeah, right.
But we had a council meeting in 1993, and it added up to, because originally Forest City and Rouse were going to build a shopping center there, but it took a $264 million subsidy that I calculated we could afford, but the city decided it didn't want to pay. So Elihu Harris never gave on. He's the person that coined the term the Uptown Entertainment District. When I became economic advisor, I remember he pointed, we were in a meeting, he said, he pointed to me, he goes, I want this to be developed at all costs.
Right.
And so David Martin came in, but basically what he did, to make a long story short, was, and I'll just say this on the record, he back inflated his costs into the spreadsheet, thinking we wouldn't see them, and I picked them out. And that started to go down by the wayside. Then when Jerry Brown became mayor, what was supposed to be retail, and then Kofi Bonner was the economic development director at the time, and then left to run the Cleveland Browns. But at any rate, during that period, we were trying to develop Uptown into what would have been the Times Square of the rest, with the Fox Theater at the center. LHU refused to pay $500,000 for a study that Robert A.M. Stern Architects would have done and was ready to do, including design charrettes and everything. So I mean, the whole history behind it that leads to why that's empty now. The bottom line is the city has to decide if it wants something there, it's got to pay for it. You know, and it's got to have, and you know this as well as I do, if not better, because you're a practitioner. We have to have coherent design standards down in that area. We don't have that. I mean, I can talk to you off camera at length about it. There's,
it's a project near and dear to my heart. So, I mean, I brought that up only because it's about Oakland.
Right.
So I moved to Oakland. Well, I live here. I live in Oakland. I live near the site. So it's great to, it's a 15-minute bike ride from my house. It's pretty cool. So I like the idea that also so I can BART, run my bike. It's a fast car drive. It's just great to be in a city.
Hey, great interview.
Thanks.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Cool.
Okay.
And I'm going to talk with you, and first talk to my viewers about who you are. Let's get to know Ken and as an architect and your company. How long have you been in Oakland?
I moved to Oakland really from New York City by a brief way of, I'm a Bay Area native. I grew up in Palo Alto, but I moved to Oakland from New York City about 12 years ago. And I worked for a very large company in San Francisco called Gensler, doing big projects for Gensler.
They did some of the airport stuff, right?
They did airport stuff, but the biggest project I worked on with them was the George Lucas offices in the Presidio. It's 1 million square feet. And EFI campus, and some other things which I'm forgetting at the moment, but basically larger projects. A lot of office buildings, and sort of, that market is sort of done for now.
When did you decide to go out on your own as an architect?
I went out on my own as an architect, so that when the tech wreck happened, I basically got laid off from Gensler and started teaching at the California College of Arts. It was actually called CCA back then, California College of Arts and Crafts.
Right.
And so first class I co-taught was a thesis, architectural thesis, and then sort of moved over to interdisciplinary studios, upper division interdisciplinary studios, where various artists, graphic painters, sculptors, jewelry makers, metal workers, film, photography, architects, would all get together and explore different ideas. So I taught 3 studios there. One on scale, issues of scale and size in cities and natural landscapes. One on time, and another one on integrating urban and natural landscapes together. So it was really fun. But I was teaching, as I was teaching those studios, I was also starting my company, and there was a sort of a tension between the amount of time I can dedicate to teaching or having my own company. So I'm much more, I'm an entrepreneur than a teacher, I discovered. So I stopped teaching and I started focusing completely on my business. And that was about 8 years ago.
It's funny how we all discover that at some point in our lives, It's like we follow one track that says, work for somebody else, yada, 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 and then we go that one. I'm curious though, could you describe what your architectural style is?
I went to graduate school in Los Angeles at the Southern California Institute of Architecture, better known as SCI-Arc, and Architectural Association in London, called the AA, these acronyms. And basically those schools are sort of, I guess you would call them, if you could call them anything, more deconstructivist. It's a kind of architecture that is really sort of Southern Californian and European, and not really Northern Californian. It's just sort of the climate that I was educated in. And but that's sort of.
Could you think of a building that best describes that?
Tom Main's Federal Building
in
San Francisco, I would say, is the nearest one. and the Herzog and the Miron de Young Museum is, I mean, that's sort of that's a sort of deconstructivism has gone circled back to modernism. So there are unusual forms, complex skins, very complex spatial relationships, real attentiveness to site conditions. That's sort of what that is. What sort of a modern, the next step from deconstructivism towards modernism. But in my education, my biggest takeaways were not so much stylistic, but sort of an attitude towards cities, and sort of.
I got to ask you just a momentary, not even aside. What do you think of Helmut Jahn's work in that context? Which
Helmut Jahn's work as far as being.
Because you mentioned modernist, and one would argue that he is modernist.
Yeah.
But I just wondered what you thought of his work, just curiosity.
No, I don't really. He is someone who has never really influenced me, and I just see his name in his projects in the media. I think he did something in Las Vegas too.
He did the United Airlines terminal, which is because I'm originally from Chicago, so
I think he is more corporatist, sort of a corporate modernist, kind of an architect. He's talented. I guess his talent is really taking complex programs and putting them in a building so that it works, and then making forms that are compelling. But he's not someone that I look to as for inspiration.
Who do you look to? Who is your inspiration?
Who do I look to? That's interesting. Rafael Medeo. And I think he's a great architect because he's an urbanist and he uses materials in a very judicious and interesting way. And it actually has very simple forms. So I was talking about deconstructivism before, which is all about sort of aggregated forms. And I sort of admire. I mean, going back to what I was talking about as far as cities.
Right.
I mean, my inspiration are cities. I take my inspiration mostly from cities. So looking at a project, each project is different. So there's not like a stylistic thread that goes through everything for a couple of reasons. One is because each site is different, has different requirements and different climate, different aspirations, different material palette that is its context, different trees and slopes or shapes of the sites. But also, the location directs architecture to look differently. But just how this office works is not a sole authorship. It's not like I am the sole author of all the things we produce. Architecture is a result of a team. And so in my office, probably in this particular project, College Avenue and Claremont is, it's an interesting story because we were invited to a competition. I believe there were 5 other architects, and I was trying to get work with Safeway, so I was quite pleased to be invited to this competition because it's a great site, and I live nearby, but that's something else. But so in this initial effort, it was myself and another designer in this office, Tim Sloat, who really pushed on it.
So really, you live by it, so this is like a personal involvement for you in a sense, yeah?
It's very personal, but just so I can talk about teamwork for a second.
Yeah, please,
It's very deeply personal for me. And so then later on, someone else got involved on our side, Tony Valadez. So basically, it was 3 people really pushing it out the door. And then Chris Schofield sort of helped at the very end. So basically 4 people internally. And there's a whole Safeway group of people who are responding to, giving us direction and what's working, what's not working for them. And then there are engineers that affect us, but at this point not as much. And of course then there's the community. I'm the 3rd architect to be involved with this project, and it's an extremely active community because everyone cares about this place.
And this is a vastly different building than the first one that was proposed.
It is. I think the other proposals were far more suburban and essentially large plaster boxes that weren't attentive to the complex sort of pedestrian retail experience that is happening across the street. And I literally have coffee, every morning at this intersection. I live 2 blocks away, so I'm very attuned.
Oh, you go to that coffee place up the street there?
Cold coffee.
Yeah.
So basically, like this rendering is taken from cold coffee, looking at Safeway.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, I know that angle.
Yeah. It's pretty funny.
Yeah.
So just as an architect, it's very interesting to have a project that is so significant in an area that I know intimately. You know, I have coffee there. I see people. We talk about it all the time. This project, so it's a great responsibility because I live there and I'm not moving. You know, so I'm deeply motivated to make it as good as it can be.
But you also have an automatic social network. What do they tell you
What do they tell me about it?
when you talk? Yeah.
They think that it's too big.
Mm-hmm.
They think that it's going to block the view of the hills. That will put adjacent businesses out of business, and it'll increase traffic to such an extent to make life unbearable. And I think the final critique is it's not green. It'll reduce air quality. It's not the way to build cities and to make sustainable architecture. And so some of the concerns are, I mean, it's everyone cares for this place. This place is loved and used and it's part of all of our lives. So there's a lot of tension, a lot of discussion and heated discussion about what this is going to be because everyone cares. Mm-hmm. It's not, something that is just going to happen. This is going to be a long, detailed, specific discussion.
It reminds me of, I call it Dryers 2.
Yeah.
Because how long been in Oakland?
I know about the Dryers story, so I wasn't here then.
Yeah, I was covering for the Montclarian.
Yeah.
And at that time, a lot of the same concerns. Rockridge went from being called Chapel of the Chimes to when the Rockridge BART station was finished, burgeoning development.
Yeah.
But Dryers was seen as the first stab toward a suburbanization that some people didn't want, and but it's interesting in this context, but the difference, there's a big difference, an enormous one. There was nothing as big as Dryers prior to Dryers in that site. This is slightly different. This is an expansion. You're not entirely reworking the land, wholesale. Correct me if I'm wrong. Do you think that's because you have a grocery? My saying is you have a grocery store there that is of size. It has a footprint.
But what's not happening is there's not some mute box being shoved on the site.
Mm-hmm.
If along College Avenue, we're learning from what's happening across the street. So sort of the urban grammar of recessed stores, entrances, lots of glass on the retail storefronts, awnings. Transom windows, small storefronts. So basically, what's currently on College Avenue on the Safeway side is a big blank wall in a parking lot and no trees. And what's happening on the successful side from a pedestrian standpoint, side of College Avenue, we have small storefronts, we have awnings, we have beautiful sycamore trees, and it's just people are walking all up and down that. It's just a great place to be, great restaurants.
Right.
And the other side is it's like a lava rock wall. So what we're trying to do is mirror what's happening on the successful side.
Which one of these shows how that addresses the street in that context?
So these two images here, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So the idea is, and you can go to the website Safeway on College, and we have a movie that sort of shows how this all works. But basically, so you've got small storefronts, recessed doors, a canopy, and then transoms. You can see that here as well and there as well. So when you're walking down the sidewalk, it's going to be it's going to have the same feel as the Yasai and La Farine side of College Avenue.
So it fits within the context of what's there, basically.
Yeah, so this is a very difficult and unusual situation because it's not, it's not a shopping center, it's not in an area like Walnut Creek where there's lots of big boxes around it. Mm-hmm. It's a very fine-tuned, very evolved retail district. So it requires a lot of care to be involved with this. So I guess I'd like to do the design we're proposing is very attentive and very careful to how it fits into this context. The Safeway is on the second level, and all along the ground level is pedestrian. Small stores, bike racks, benches, lots of these are the trees shown when they're quite young. They'll be big, like they are across the street here, and of course, this walkway, right, this walk street right here, which basically is where the gas station is on the corner of College and Claremont. We're demolishing that too and putting a walk street, which will have retail on both sides, and stairs and a bridge from elevators to a public garden that is actually, you can see it right here.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
So really, it's going to completely activate.
Very nice touch.
Oh, thanks.
Right.
It's going to completely activate that side of the street, and
This has a Market Hall feel. You know, there's a part of Market Hall you walk through that.
yeah.
I mean, it sort of seems to echo a design that's, you know.
Well, Market Hall is a very successful. It's a great example. You know, it's a model for places, you know, all around, like Ferry Plaza. It's the East Bay Ferry Plaza. It's really got. It's a wonderful model that I know other people are looking at to do in other parts of the Bay Area. But I guess I'd like to, if I could circle back to some of the concerns that people have about the project. Some of them are legitimate, and you know, it's part of doing a significant project, and some of them are. I really wonder the motivation behind what people say. There is a group. There's a group called the Rose Foundation, and if I understand their concern with this project correctly, they're saying that it is going to because of the increased traffic, it is not a green project, and because of that, this is not the kind of project you want to have in the urban areas.
What do they want?
Well, they want something smaller, and their perspective is, if I understand this, it's a sustainability argument that we don't want to be doing these kinds of projects in cities. That is ludicrous. That position is I don't really know what to call it, but the Sierra Club, the Greenbelt Alliance, every major group concerned with sustainability in cities would disagree with the Rose Foundation. And so that's one thing. But even if you take a step back and look at the current legislation climate of SB 375, which this California State Senate has approved, and that is really going to make all the cities in the next 25, 50 years more and more dense to reduce greenhouse gases. Mostly, the idea is to reduce trips. And we know that Oakland loses about $1 billion a year in retail leakage.
Right.
It's a complete disaster. And this area is Oakland's most successful retail district. But notwithstanding that, people will walk to this store. You know, a lot of people walk to the store, and people will not be driving to Walnut. People will not be driving to the Alameda or to Berkeley to go shopping. They'll be taking shorter trips or walking to go here. So it just seems preposterous, and it seems anti-urban, and it's against any sort of well-founded understanding of how cities in the future can be more sustainable and livable. So I just want to address my understanding of what the Rose Foundation is saying. This morning I had coffee with Patrick. I forget his last name, but he owns the flower store across the street. He has a fantastic shop, top quality flowers, and he is very concerned that his business and his adjacent businesses on that block of College across the street, which is so successful, will be imperiled by the expanded Safeway. And that is a concern that we've heard again and again. And
what's the basis for his concerns? Does he think that an indoor flower shop will take away from his?
Right, exactly. He thinks that once the Safeway gets bigger, there'll be the goods and the offerings of Safeway will just put everyone out of business. We'll put Isai out of business, Patrick Flores out of business, Jeff LaFarine out of business, Vino out of business, Brugge out of business, who sells meat. And so this doesn't jive with sort of what's happened historically when Safeways go into places and they sort of bring more customers.
But the logical question, though, is if it's almost counterintuitive. If you have a development that's bringing more people and they are outside the development, doesn't that mean they have more potential people to draw from?
Exactly. So, and I agree with you, and that's generally what happens. But you know, I'm on the team. I'm on Safeway's team. So when we say this, or other people, you know, Safeway says this, it doesn't carry much weight. So what we've done is we've hired Linda Hasruth, who is an urban economist, and she has done a detailed study of other grocery stores, Safeway and Whole Foods, what happens when they go into locations, which generally what happens is business increases for adjacent businesses. And she's also done a study on this particular site, because this site is unusual, and I mean, every site is different, but this site is more different than other sites.
For